good morning. Welcome to the Motor Life F1 podcast, episode 12. I'm Lee Motaboy, your host. Once again, special guest, always welcome here, Richard Wanjohi. Karibu.
Thank you. That time, lucky.
Okay. So we mainly talk about F1, but then we have a world of motorsports and a world of business. And last week you hosted the Sports Business Roundtable at Strathmore. What was that about?
Basically, what has happened in the last 2 to 3 years, we have seen a lot of changes in the sports world, especially in relation to Kenya. We have seen a lot of federations or sports bodies having challenges either with ethics, governance, and just basically looking at sports from a commercial or business perspective. We felt that as an institution, it's important that we see how best we can guide these federations, sports bodies, sports personalities, and basically just affect the whole ecosystem. So we're trying to set up a bit of conversations around that space, understand what the gaps are, what the opportunities are, and then move that conversation from what the challenges would be and how we can build on the goodwill that we have, either as a state and also from the different entities that we have. We have NBA, which is investing big time in infrastructure in Africa. If we can enable that environment and give them that opportunity, it's for us now to take advantage of such gaps and plug in. But then we can't have that without the basics. If you're not looking at this as a commercial perspective, from a commercial perspective, if you don't have your ethics and transparency and accountability, if you don't have the clear guidelines of, how do we report our financial statements, either as a federation or a sports body, without those basics, then, we'll just be painting the same picture that we've had in the last 10 years. So we just want to disrupt the space for a few.
Okay. And which is this program that you lead?
So what happens within a learning institution, and this is, again, the learning process that I've had, is that you have to identify the gap. Once you identify the gap, you do a lot of research, a lot of proof of concept, and which is what the Roundtable is helping us do. So we are getting a lot of feedback. We're trying to see what are the gaps that exist in this ecosystem. If you remember, we did a survey that, we sort of got feedback from the audiences. So that we'll try to do in the next 2 or 3 roundtables, just to get the feedback and what the ecosystem feels or is seeing as the issues that stand out. Now, from that, then we'll be able to identify which are the low-hanging fruits. Is it training executives? Is it helping people build entrepreneurial skills? Is it the media and how they report the sports stories? Is it the infrastructure for players? How do they contract? How do they negotiate their, sports deals? All those then now will be collated into one report. Then we decide we do the trainings, if it's continuing with more seminars, if it's partnering with bodies like FIFA, NBA, all these international sports bodies.
Okay.
Yep.
You welcomed us to Strathmore last week, and you started your intro with 4 pillars of sports properties, management, sports content, and rights management. How would you rate motorsports in Kenya along those 4 lines?
Motorsports was one of the biggest properties that we had, or in terms of a sports organization, one of the biggest up until the early 2000s. After we lost the Safari Rally, then, they have sort of had their hole deep into the abyss, but they're coming back into form. Their biggest property, even as we speak, is the Safari Rally. So that's the biggest and the marquee product. But over and above that, they have the national circuit that has about 8 rallies. But if you include the Safari, it's 9 rallies. They also have motor clubs. We have 15 motor clubs across the country.
15?
15. That's the interesting bit about this space. But what happens is that then that ecosystem, because of the Safari stands out on its own because of the FIA and WRC. So that is usually like a property for the FIA. The involvement from Kenya Motorsports basically to just provide some technical expertise and get their drivers coming on board. Beyond that, then WRC and FIA move away, and we are left with the Kenya Motorsports Federation to manage the local rallies. Now, from that, then we have not seen a lot of investment in local rallies. We have the title sponsor, which is a local bank. But then the investment has not been commensurate to what has happened in the Safari, because Safari has got this huge investment that they've got in the last 3 to 4 years since we got back into the circuit. If the same can be done to the local circuit, then we can start talking about, involvement in or involvement of local motor enthusiasts. So, for example, we have the Subaru Owners Club, we have the Mitsubishi Owners Club, we have Toyota, which is quite big. You guys drive from here to Naivasha, from here to Samburu. If you start involving them in the local rallies with the motorsports clubs that you have, you can localize that and you can be having a bigger engagement.
Okay. Then at the seminar, you highlighted 3 federations. I think one was motorsports, one was rugby, and one was golf. These are the 3 sports which are getting the most, is it local corporate funding?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of federations, which is the motorsports federation, and what do they do to attract sponsors, the banks, the telcos?
So again, any sport or any investment that corporates make, it's the eyeballs and the audiences that you attract. The motorsport has been able to use the safari to attract the necessary audiences. I think I came in the first session that we had here in 2021 when the safari was here when they did the spectator stage in Kasarani.
Yes.
We had over 100,000 guys showing up for just the spectator stage. And that's just Kasarani. You can imagine the sort of audience or crowd that we had in Naivasha for the span of the 3 days. I could say it was more than 1 million if you do it cumulatively. The activations that were there were just out of this world. So if you look at the numbers, then the corporates look at that and they think, this is something I want to be involved in. This is something that I want to invest my brand in. The same can be done to the local motorsports circuit. If you have about 3 to 4 rallies, but they have 8 rallies, I think they can scale it down to about 5. That will help them then reach a wider audience, but also be able to appeal to the corporates. Because if you localize some of these rallies, if, for example, you're holding it in Nakuru, the Cabrasis of this world, the local community, business community, if they're able to see the numbers that you attract in that local rally, then they'll be able to say, okay, I can put my money into this and support you. Remember, motorsport is not a cheap sport. Right from buying the car, the fuel they use, the servicing, all those is an investment that you have to make. So it's the same for brands. They look at the opportunities that they have that in that. So, for example, Safaricom, telco, no relation to rallying, but then they identify a gap and they say, we can sponsor youth or talent that is going to be nurtured in the next 3 to 5 years. How much does it give us? This becomes like a CSR activity for us. And because of our involvement, then we are able to get snippets and clips. The visibility they got from that in the last 3 to 4 years, almost tenfold what they can invest in marketing and branding for their brand.
Now, the Safari Rally, we just had it about, 2 months ago. There have been a few changes over the last few years. Last year, we had a new government organizing it with a new cabinet secretary. And this year, we have a new kind of a board. So we have had a transition from Phineas Kimathi's team to Charles Gasheru's team. As a sports fan and as a semi-insider, what changes have you seen happening in the rally this year?
Again, because of the unique way that the safari is placed, there was a lot of government involvement to get it back to the WRC and the FIA circuit. The government actually invested almost 3 to 4 years of coalescing or even getting the FIA officials to come here. That was pre-2020. Pre-COVID. Once that was confirmed, they even had to bring in the FIA team, show them the infrastructure, show them the secretary that they set up at Kasarani. So what has happened, we started in 2020, couldn't do it because of COVID. The first rally then came in 2021. So we've had 2 or 3 rallies that the previous administration ran with. Because of the government involvement and because of the transition that we had in 2022, a lot of political machinations had to go, behind the scenes. And that is what happened, that we had to replace the previous administration for finance and the current administration that is Gasheru's. So I put them in 2, sort of like silos. We have Finas, who is a former rally driver, successful businessman, has the goodwill from the FIA, goodwill from the government of the day then. And then also he's been a local rally enthusiast. So
yes,
he knows the space. Very good and all well-intentioned. I think he had the goodwill within the community, and that's what enabled him to get the safari back into the circuit and also just rally around local business and corporates and enthusiasts. Now, when the transition of the government happened, obviously they want to disrupt and also get a bit of buy-in from themselves. So they look at Finas and they're thinking, no, this is guy from the previous administration. Do we continue with him? And if you ask me, I think he should have been given an extra 1 or 2 years. Then now you start managing the transition effectively. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You bring in Charles, successful sports marketer who's done a lot of work or events in that space. He's not a rally driver, but I think in the business sphere, he's successful in his own right. What happens is that you bring in an outsider into a sport that is very specialized and very technical. I think we saw the teething problems they had when organizing this year's rally. There was a bit of hitches. I think we almost couldn't get the rally kicking off on the actual days. Somehow the administrative of the secretariat was able to save the situation. But those are the teething problems that you could have avoided if you had if you had managed the transition better. So what has happened is that Charles then has a whole calendar year that he can start learning the sport, understanding the system, and also putting a bit more effort, not just in the safari, but also in the local circuit, that he can get buy-in from the local enthusiasts and corporates.
The rally on paper is there till 2026. Okay, and then how do they? How early do you confirm about, say, 2027 or 28? What's the standard in the rally world, not just in Kenya?
So what happens with the FIA is that they have like 3 or 4 major areas they look at. First of all, it's the investment. How much investment are you willing to put in as a country? Second, safety measures. That's almost like the non-negotiable for them. So that's why they closed up a lot of circuits and the legs, and that's why you notice the difference between previous safaris. When we used to do even rallying at night, but nowadays it's all starts at earliest 7, latest by 6 p.m. They're closed and back in the paddocks. So safety becomes a crucial part of this. Then also, I think it's if you look at the local corporate support, how much are they willing to put in? Then I think the final one is, again, the audiences. How much audience, or what are the numbers looking at? And I think the safari has always had that unique selling proposition. It's the toughest rally. It's now Kwanzaa because we returned it to its traditional Easter season. All those spills and bounds about running in the muddy sketches, the what do you call it? This
Fresh fish.
Fresh fish. all those behind the scenes and unique propositions on that circuit then makes it unique. So those are the things that the FIA looks for. So if you're able to offer that as a country, then they're able to give you the opportunity to host. Safari has been able to do that in the last 3 years. I think we still have a good buy-in from them. But if then we keep doing the political interference that we had, like we did in this year, and then we don't keep our promise, I think that can be withdrawn. And that's what happened in 2002 when we lost that. And, it took us almost, 20 years to get back into that space.
Okay, we hope that won't happen. In the world of F1 now, America is seen as the mecca for stuff. They now have 3 races. 2 weeks ago, they had Miami. And last year, they had the first Las Vegas Grand Prix. And you shared a very interesting report about the world of the business of sport. What stood out for you in that report? Because it was quite remarkable in the numbers, which I'm still reading it now.
So as always, what's the impact into the local community, into the local business community, and also into the economy? Las Vegas, the authorities acknowledged this was the largest sporting event for them. Pre-event, during the event, and post-event. The beauty about Las Vegas is they have the infrastructure, right, from the local community, the business community, and also just the numbers in terms of rooms and like the infrastructure for supporting planes landing, all these rich, because again, F1 is a rich man's sport. So all these guys will want to be in Vegas. And that's the unique selling proposition that Las Vegas was able to offer. Looking at the impact, they had over 880 million in terms of locally just spending within the economy in that particular weekend. If you look at the number of visitors, they spend 3 times more than your average traveler. If you look at the night spend, about 4,000 per night for that particular trip, and not looking at the ticketing at the actual venue. So the impact into that ecosystem is just that one sport can support the infrastructure or the city's activities for a whole 3 to 6 months. Remember, they even had to redesign some of the roads because of the way the circuit was going to run. I think they even set up they constructed a new road surface, which was beneficial to the local community. The ripple effect of just that whole positive vibe around the city, and that is what, again, if we are able to quantify in terms of the impact that an event like the safari has in the local economy, then we can pitch that to local corporates and local businesses.
I mean, it was astounding the impact it had on the community. I mean, having guests who spent 4 times a typical visitor. But what I also liked about it was that it addressed many aspects in terms of, for example, police, infrastructure, the airport's people, the safety people, and how they all had to pull together, including business permits, new restaurant licenses. And they also acknowledged the shortcomings they had, where they said, this is something which we had to improve. There was poor communication between access teams, getting permissions. Has there been any attempt to do a similar report in Kenya for the safari?
From a corporate side, I know they have. I think that a few of the corporates that sponsor the event usually have, but it's usually for their own internal purposes.
Okay.
The Safari Rally Limited, I think they usually have a report. Unfortunately, they have not been able to make it an annual, sort of annual thing that they come and share with us and tell us this is what happened in this year. I think those are some of the things that we want to address. Again, if you ask me what the sports business conversations are all about, it's telling people how can we measure the impact of a sports event over and above just people coming in and flying out. So you look at pre-event, what infrastructure do you need? What commercial interests have been put in place? How do you measure this impact from a Nairobi perspective, Nairobi County or Nairobi City, Naivasha, all these areas that will host the rally? Remember, 2 years ago, we almost moved the rally from Naivasha to Nanyuki because of the way the traffic had issues in 2021, 2022.
Yes.
So that's, again, a conversation that you can put across within the local community and tell them, okay, we have the rally that is starting off in Nairobi, but we really don't have to host it in Nairobi. We can decide to go to a different county. Which other county or which other city can be able to run with this? And then, everyone puts up their bid and they are competitive enough and they put right infrastructure. You make it competitive in that way. Then also the business community says, okay, yeah, this is a place that we can support and nurture and grow.
So the rally takes place in Naivasha, that's Nakuru County. Do you know if Nakuru County does any sports awareness in terms of this is the impact on the Naivasha hotels, Nakuru, versus the disruption to the highway? I don't know if, to me, that would be a useful...
Unfortunately, they don't, but those are the opportunities that we're saying. As a county, can you start measuring those things? The impact of having such a sport, the impact of having like the rugby or golfing circuits. Start using your own resources and saying, okay, us as a county will be able to support motorsport because we are able to have, closed circuits. We are able to have servicing centers. We have service parks that can be used, just not just for the safari, for any of the local rallies.
Because I think if looking at different reports, which I do, but it's very hard to get information to see. KCB said they spent 100M in 2022, going up 23, 24. Safaricom, what they did in terms of communications, Kenya Airways in terms of the logistics and Toyota. But I think if there was a comprehensive impact report of the safari, I think future governments would be keen to support it, because you would say, yes, it might be a check of I don't know how many 100 million it would be per year, but if you look at the impact in terms of tourism, in terms of marketing awareness, it's a very unique property.
Yeah.
I think that would help sell the safari internally to decision makers.
Precisely, and you see, again, FIA or the WRC circuit will never look at a sport or bring a rally that is not going to impact the local community or the local infrastructure. If you don't have those numbers to show or the numbers to report, then they'll think you're not serious with what you're doing, and they can always seek an alternative market, whether in North Africa or South Africa, which are ready and more than willing to host such a rally.
I think there's an opportunity for you there to do that report.
Precisely why we are setting up this center in Strathmore.
What else does the center hope to do in the world of business and sports business?
So it's basically looking at sports as a business and also providing the right infrastructure and the right training that sports administrators or anyone who wants to get into sport can look out for. So from financial reporting, in fact, one of the interesting topics that we might have is sports finance. So looking at entrepreneurs, how do they finance their sports operations, all the way to looking at how do you negotiate for contracts, how do you get into sponsorship deals. So it's providing all that from a business perspective, but mainstreaming it into sports as well. Because if you look at sports right now, it's purely business. And if we don't think of sports as a business, then we are not supposed to be in that space. The government can only provide support in terms of infrastructure, in terms of an enabling environment, tax rebates. I know that is not a conversation they want to have, but the government should not be in sports in the long term. Leave it to private sector, let them do their thing. Then now you come in as a government and you get the benefits from the economy.
It came up in the summit about the transition of corporate sponsorships from FMCG companies. I can't say it properly. Then you have telcos now. And then for a period, we had sports betting companies.
Yes.
What is the current status of the top corporates who are supporting sports now, not just in motorsports?
So most of the corporates right now are still, the betting companies take the huge chunk, largely because they command the numbers. So from your audiences or participants who you engage in the different platforms, telcos are big because again, the infrastructure that people use in betting is largely driven by the telcos and also the mobile payments. Banks are also having a good representation, especially in non-traditional sports like
golf. Okay.
Because of the corporate side of things and the business B2B engagements. We don't have a lot of FMCGs coming into that space. We have the unique EABL that sponsors either the national team or a unique sports like Kenya Open, but it's also because of the restrictions of alcohol and tobacco. So they had to put a step, for example, in BAT, they can't sponsor any sport. So they look for a different way of getting that engagement. But the three big ones, betting, banking, and financial institutions.
Okay. Back to F1, the world of Formula One. We are 1 quarter into the season. Max and Red Bull have won 4 of the 6 races we've had. It's been still been an exciting season. I mean, to learn that the Miami Grand Prix had higher ratings than NASCAR, which is America's top motorsports. Mm-hmm. That was a bit staggering.
Yes, because the beauty about America and the appreciation for sport, it's anytime they get the hype around the sport, they're able to run with it. And that becomes a very easy transition because you have the audiences, you have the numbers, you have the corporates that, come in a big way. You have the technical know-how, you have the technology that supports that, from streaming to providing all those unique views and all that. So the beauty about the American economy or that, especially the sports ecosystem, is that once you bring a sport to them and it has the numbers, they're able to just push it and take it to another level. And that is what has happened with F1. We have just said that they're going to get, I think, a 4th race in the circuit.
Yeah, looking at Chicago, if they
win the bid, again, they show the numbers and they're able to command that respect.
Red Bull has been the top team for the last 3 years, but they have had a lot of news this year. I think the big news just before Miami was Adrian Newey will be leaving the team next year, 2025. What do you think this portends for the rest of the season for Red Bull?
Red Bull, as a team, I think on the ground, it's their title to lose. Challenge is that they're having too many internal issues. We had the fiasco with Horner before the season started. I think they could have dealt with it better and, sort of either reprimanded Horner because as much as your team principal, you have to abide by certain social standings. Unfortunately, they let him run with what he did, and that I think is imploding within the team. And that is affecting because if you saw the immediate race, they lost that because of just some old, internal team issues, and losing such a an asset in the guy leaving the team. That means that for the rest of the season, you might see 2 or 3 other critical persons in the team leaving. But it's still Red Bull's title to lose. If they just take care of the team internally and then just hold it together, I think Max has the right thing to support him to win back.
Where do you think Newey will go? I think there's bets on Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari.
I think he's most likely to end up with Mercedes. I think, what's his name? The team principal for Mercedes. He's always Toto. He's trying to prod the Red Bull guys and just destabilize that. And I think he has seen the heir to Lewis, who's leaving for Ferrari at the end of the season. And I think also for Hamilton right now, he's just a sitting duck. I wish he had announced much later that he's leaving for the team, because then the team is already bound with him and saying, you're leaving, we can only give you so much support. So they are already investing into the future.
Okay, so you had McLaren win finally after 2 years with some new upgrades. This weekend we're going to Italy. Ferrari will now bring the upgraded car. What do you think will happen in this weekend in Italy?
Weather permitting, Red Bull will take a 1-2, maybe Ferrari and or McLaren in 3 and 4. Okay.
So that's your podium pick, two Red Bulls and one Ferrari.
2 Red Bulls, because Red Bull will have to prove a point. I mean, they lost the Miami because of some stupid technical issues, and again they lost their focus. But in Italy, because it's a motor, I call Italy like it's the traditional motorsport country. I mean, they gave us the Ferraris of this world, the Lamborghinis. So for Red Bull, they have to prove a point in front of the Italian audience.
Okay, that's your podium pick for this week. Finally, just want to ask you, in the business summit last week, we wanted to highlight positive things in the business space. Who do you think are the federations to watch and the athletes to watch, both in terms of what they're doing in business, what they're doing in social media, what they're doing in terms of elevating themselves and their sports?
From a federation perspective, if Sasha does not get entangled in the legal issues, I think he has a very good vibe for rugby. And I think we've already seen that with the impact he has had in the last 12 months that he's run the sport. We've been able to get back the Super Series that has been away from us for over 10 years. He's also put the right infrastructure in place for supporting the Sevens team. I think they're doing a good job also trying to nurture the talent for the 15s, which is always a critical one, because then you have the 15s that has to support the big ecosystem of the rugby. If he gets the necessary support and sponsors coming back, which I think they're trickling back in, it's the Sports Federation to watch. Athletics, still a big one, because we are the home of champions, as we call ourselves. They can resolve their issues better. I think they are also caught up in a few of legal tussles. They were supposed to have their elections. Someone had requested that they vacate from office. Still a lot of potential with the talent coming through. But if they don't get that sorted out, then they'll be stuck in a rut for the next 1 or 2 years. Always National Olympics, because of the Olympic Games. We have the Prix coming up. They have done some good work both within the Olympic village and just helping the national teams prepare better. They have also the right goodwill from the government. I think they've really put up a lot of systems in place to support the local sports talent. Smaller federations, I would not be very positive about a couple of them. I think they need to get their houses in order. Football, volleyball, hockey, cricket. Still a lot of work to do, both from a governance perspective, getting the right people in place, getting the right corporate support. Golf is unique in that scenario, but we just participate in the local circuit. We have not gone international yet. So for me, the stick out rugby, athletics, and National Olympics.
Okay. Thank you so much, Richard. As always, an insight into the world of sports and business. We all look forward to the next Sports Business Roundtable, and please let us know when that will be, hopefully in a couple of weeks. I'm Limo Taboy, recording at SemaBOX Podcast Incubator with Dan Aceda is our host today. And happy races at Imola, Good luck, Ferrari. I'm biased. And see you on the next episode.
Thank you very much.